What is the job of a politician, really? Is it to govern on behalf of the people or execute the will of the people? And when that breaks down, you end up with situations where, like this, where you end up with this populism, this sort of extreme ideology, because everyone gets so annoyed at everything that's going on that they'll listen to any old rubbish.
Will any political system get us out of the lack of empathy and the bigotry and the scapegoating that we're in right now?
This might not be my experience. This might not be what I'm dealing with, but I can still look at and have an understanding of someone else's point of view and not always feel like I have to try to twist it or what they're saying isn't real or meaningful.
What a weird time we live in, right? Like Citizens United.
Yeah.
What a strange time.
I remember very, very clearly when I was in primary school and we had to stand up and do this little presentation with just drawn these crayon drawings of the hole in the ozone layer and, waste in the ocean and how it was, how it was a really bad thing. But we also felt at that age that by the time we became adults, that was going to be fixed.
This isn't a case of people just being mistaken and saying things that they're just mistaken about.
Not misinformation, disinformation.
This is disinformation. They know what they're doing.
Climate change is the most horrible symptom of an economic system that has been built for a few to extract every precious ounce of value out of this planet and its people, from our natural resources to the fruits of our human labor. This system has created this crisis.
Pretty dystopian pain medication vending machines that they have in the warehouses. That one really threw me for a loop the first time I read the book.
I have never had a book, and still haven't to this point, that has triggered every one of my protective instincts.
And I just remember this very sort of immediate sense of, when you're reading a book, you're there, you're seeing it, you're in the book, and then just looking out the window and suddenly being transported 13 years later to the actual present, and that weird transposition of what I was reading and being in the mod. It was memorable.
The stories, isn't it? The people,
Yeah.
the things that happen. Like if you just looked at statistics, it would be incredibly boring. But there were this is full of people trying to change the world.
And in like a normal world, I wouldn't really have to care about this that much. I wouldn't have to have a degree in cloud computing to understand.
People do want to kind of be in community with people that they feel can relate to the situations that they're going through in a different way where you don't always have to explain.
There's going to be a point where if you want to fund your schools, you're going to have to play along, unless things change.
So it also creates splits in ideology as well. And like the Methodists as well are very deliberate about having this form of Christianity that's about doing something in the community rather than just, waiting for God to solve it all the time sort of thing. And that's definitely being sort of aware of what's around you and being sort of not necessarily class conscious of social.
We need to remember how far we have come in the last 150 years. Like in a lot of ways, we are so much further. The drawback is when you're climbing a hill or a mountain, it's a lot easier to fall backwards down towards the earth than climb up.
People talk about like the promise for robots to kind of fix these issues with the warehouses, but he mentions that in robotic warehouses, which they've tested out at Amazon, the injury rates for human employees are actually significantly higher.
When you think about, we are a small country, and it's so weird what we did. Like we went around the whole country, whole world, going, right, you guys, you're gonna do what I say from now on, and then this is our language, and this is our religion. It's so weird, but we did do that, and the consequences are huge.
I think it's like that's the trickiest thing, right? Is that it's by design. They don't want you to really be thinking when you're using a lot of this stuff.
It's a moment in your life when you kind of meet the expectation of yourself and the reality of yourself.
Direct action, it's the system isn't right, so we're going to literally just take your money and give it to someone else.
So they're very obsessed with this idea of making people feel safe in theory and selling that, but in practice, they don't care about your safety at all, really.
There are some boycotts going on of different retailers and things like that. That's a part of that resistance. And it's nonviolent on the one hand, because, we're not going in there and burning stuff up, but it's also violent because now We're taking money and things out of people's pockets, and
Yeah.
there's a level of violence to that.
It's about whistleblowing, or not even deliberately going out to blow the whistle, but telling your story of what it's like on the other side of what you've always thought something was. And I always think those kind of books are really important.
I just want people to open their eyes and look, and then just do the little things. Not everyone is going to be marching through the streets protesting. The little moments day to day, if everyone does that, these issues actually can't take hold.
I've lived in a world without Amazon, and I know what that's like. I've bought things in a world without Amazon. So like I can find a way to do that again. And that's not, maybe it's like inconvenience to me, but it's worth it to me for the people that it might impact.
That's not the bit that kills you. The bit that kills you is having done as much work as you can and seeing the progress made, and then in the sweep of a pen, seeing it completely unmade again.
One thing that I'd say like 90% of British people would be proud of and go on about what makes the country brilliant. They would be so upset if they knew that was happening, but it never gets talked about.
Thinking specifically cable news at this point, would use anger to kind of draw people in. And then Barbara Craig says it's actually fear. They're creating fear, and then that's what keeps you tuned in.
Are your neighbors afraid of you as their neighbor, right? Like I don't think that it makes us safer, really. I think it makes us more afraid of each other. It feels like they're kind of amplifying the fear that sells the product.
The easiest way to keep a large group of people in one place is to keep them busy and tired.
I resist that strongly. Like I will not let them take my joy.
Never gets better for the group that gets weaponized.
One of the things that often comes up specifically with Black women, there's so many times that we have to do so much heavy lifting within our community, with around the world, whatever. And sometimes we just want to rest.
As human beings, you can't think in terms that big. It's like the whole idea of like saving the world. It's too much. It's, when you take something that big, if you take the weight of the world on your shoulder, you're just going to get crushed under it.
If we have this creative yearning and we have this longing for community, like how can we take creativity and community and like have that like really help lead us forward?
Us not being all the way leaned in all the time doesn't mean that we don't care, but understanding that we have to learn to access joy and laughter and fun, and to be able to dance and to create art, and just all those different things are so important, because so much of our culture has been done in times of struggle.
Yes, we did it. I guess we did it, right? If we got people actually.
YouTube for me is just therapy. It sounds funny, but it's a bit like a coloring book.
More sparkles.